Hey, welcome to another episode of Marketing Matters with Christy Welsh. Today, she has a guest host, Anna Adams, and we're going to be talking about reducing waste at farmer markets. So stay tuned. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Marketing Matters with Christy Welsh. Today we have a guest host, Anna Adams, in which she's going to be talking about reducing waste at farmer markets. Anna, it's always a pleasure talking with you. But before we talk about reducing waste at farmer markets, tell the viewing audience a little bit about yourself.
So I am a program assistant at OSU South Centers. I've been there for almost 2 years now. I work directly with Christy with farmers markets and direct marketing programs. A little bit about my background. I grew up on a farm, currently manage and co-founded a farmers market here in Adams County. My education degree is in sustainable agriculture programs. So it's a subject that's really near and dear to me.
It sounds like it. So you started Adams County Farmers Market.
Yep, we started it in 2018.
And just out of curiosity, why?
We did not have a consistent market in Adams County for many, many years, and we saw a need to have a local food system established in the county. So I decided what better thing to do than myself.
And so I'm assuming that you're a major contributor to produce that is being sold at the market. Is that correct?
Yes. My husband and I also have our own booth at the market that we sell produce that we grow ourselves. So potatoes, tomatoes, corn, green beans. And then I also do a lot of baking and canning of jams and jellies for as well.
So at your farmer's market, how many individuals have their own booths?
We have about 12 right now. We started out with about 8. So we've grown a little bit in the past few years.
I didn't think that there was a lot of waste at farmer markets.
Yeah, so just like any other industry, not quite as much as you would see at the grocery store. There is still a lot of waste, especially when it comes to plastic waste. So we're going to talk today about reducing waste at farmers markets. Like Patrick said, a lot of people don't typically think of farmers markets as having a lot of waste. And there are just some ways things we can do to help reduce waste that we do make there, particularly when it comes to plastic waste. So when we look at the environmental impact of plastics, only about 9% of plastic actually gets recycled. The rest of it ends up in landfills, it gets incinerated, or it ends up in the environment like blowing off of a truck or in an ocean or lake. So a lot of plastic never truly goes away. It just breaks down into smaller pieces called microplastics.
Plastic has not been around a long time. It seems that back in the 50s, that's when the plastic was developed. And now it seems that all we have is plastic.
Correct. So after World War II, plastic became a booming industry whenever more people started having babies and things needed to be made easier for typical families. So between 1950 and 2015, an estimated 8.3 billion metric tons of plastic has been created. So in just that short amount of time, we've created about 25,000 Empire State Buildings worth of plastic.
I know that plastic is a part of an oil product. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it is a fossil fuel-based product. So it does have to be created from oil, whereas other things like glass and aluminum are more natural.
We get the opportunity to recycle, but you're saying only 9% of the plastic ever gets recycled? Wow, yep. That's amazing.
Yeah, so there are several different types of plastic. And typically when you see the number in the little chasing arrows triangle, only 1 and 2 are the truly recyclable ones. The rest tend to get thrown away. So we've all heard about reduce, reuse, recycle. Recycling is at the end because it should be the absolute last resort. We should try to reduce our plastic use, reuse what we can, and then recycle what we can't.
Water bottles account for a lot of the plastic because we drink from the water bottle and then we throw it away.
Yep, absolutely. So water bottles are part of what we call single-use plastics. So these are plastics that typically only have a use 1 or 2 times, and then we throw it away. Things like coffee cups, shopping bags, the plastic bottles, straws, those types of things. And this adds up to about 40% of our plastic waste and our plastic production.
I would assume that one of the ways to get rid of the plastic is to burn that. Is there a lot of burning of plastic, or is it just thrown in the landfills?
So single-use plastic typically can't be recycled. So like on a coffee cup, for example, it's a paper cup that is lined with plastic. And in the United States, we just don't have the systems in place to separate those materials. So that typically ends up in a landfill. Up until 2018, the United States was shipping its plastic waste to other countries in Asia. Since then, they've decided to stop taking our plastic, so it is just currently piling up in our landfills. It is estimated that several dump truckloads of trash ends up in oceans and streams every day, and that's just from poor waste management from here to other countries as well. Things fall off trucks. Some people just don't care and simply toss it out the window. It rains, goes into a river, ends up in the ocean.
Now, is styrofoam considered plastic?
It is. So styrofoam cannot be recycled and it never breaks down. And it is one of the biggest contributors to microplastic pollution. So the lid on coffee cups is typically styrofoam, a type of styrofoam. The packing peanuts, the packaging that we see, that's all styrofoam that ends up in landfills.
So single-use plastic, I'm assuming then, is just packaging that is only used once and we discard it.
Yeah, this plastic, sometimes it can be recycled, so like plastic water bottles, but most of the time things like straws and plastic cutlery cannot be recycled, so all those things end up in landfills.
Hey, are we trying to develop other ways of our packaging that we don't use plastic?
With plastic production, it is cheaper to make new plastics rather than recycle them. So that's another problem in our society where there's no demand for recycled plastic. Whereas things like glass and aluminum can be recycled indefinitely without loss of quality. We can find a lot of substitutions for these items that come in plastic, choosing to buy it in an aluminum can, for example. Or if you can find it in a glass container. Something I do personally is when I buy vinegar, I buy it in the glass bottle rather than the plastic bottle. I can reuse the glass bottle and it can also has a higher rate of being recycled. A lot of companies nowadays are starting to take steps to prevent a lot of plastic waste, but we still have a long way to go.
And so the plastic waste at farmers markets, what are some examples of the plastic that we throw away at farmer markets?
So at farmers markets, one of the biggest things is plastic shopping bags and plastic produce bags. Luckily, though, at farmers markets, most of the plastic is package free already. So we don't have to worry about carrots coming wrapped in a plastic bag or things like that. Farmers markets are a really great opportunity to reduce a lot of our waste, and we can also support the local economy at the same time.
When my wife and I would go to the grocery store, we always preferred paper bags. I don't know if that's any better, but I do know that there's a lot of plastic bags that we get if we don't mention about the paper bags. So let's suppose I come to the farmer's market. How would I be able to pack that so I wouldn't be carrying it out in my arms?
So that's a really great question, Patrick. And one of the things we can do is bring our own shopping bag with us. This eliminates the need for the plastic bag, and they typically store a lot more than traditional plastic shopping bags. We throw nearly 1 trillion plastic bags away every year. So just one person eliminating plastic bags out of their lives can really save quite a bit. And as far as smaller produce, we can also bring our own produce bags. So these are really great for things like onions, broccoli, and we don't have to worry about a plastic bag there. We can wash them and they're infinitely reusable.
So the bag that you're showing on this picture, what is that made of?
So this one is made of, it looks like a cotton, like a mesh cotton. It's preferable that you do choose one that is made from cotton rather than a polyester, just because polyesters tend to shed when you wash them, and that leads to more microplastic pollution. But you don't have to use anything fancy. You can simply use what you already have at home or make your own out of some scrap fabric.
There's one supermarket store that requires you to bring in your own bags. I think that's an important part of purchasing, at the shopping markets, and maybe the farmer markets can do the same thing.
Absolutely, yeah. Something else we can do is bring our own containers and jars. So some farmers markets offer bulk refill items, so things like rice and beans. You can go ahead and fill up your jar with that, or this is also really great storage for small fruits like blueberries and strawberries, so they don't get crushed in transport.
Is there any laws against certain kinds of packages?
Not to my knowledge, no. Most farmers markets today are transitioning to items that can be composted or returned.
You mentioned compost. What are you referring to? How can we compost at a farmer's market?
So what a lot of people do is once you come home with your produce from the farmer's market, you can compost the food scraps in your backyard, and that will turn into a really nutrient dense soil that you can reuse in your garden or flower beds. Something else you can do is also make your own vegetable broth with leftover food scraps. So things like onion peels, carrot peels, celery ends, just cooking that down in some water and you make a really, really rich vegetable broth. And then some markets even offer a compost return. So you can save your food scraps all week, bring it back to the market at the end of the week, and they'll compost it in an industrial compost facility.
Now, does the Adams County Farmers Market do that?
No, unfortunately, here we don't have a compost facility nearby. You'll typically find this in larger cities. So I'm not sure of any around Southern Ohio area that do. Athens County, I think, does, but that's probably about it. So fortunately, at farmers markets, a lot of the stuff already comes package free. You can find things like soap and body care items that come without a plastic packaging. I know at our farmers markets, we do have someone that sells bath soaps that come in a compostable bag. And then they also have a shaving soap that has a reusable tin container. So you just refill the container. If you buy eggs at farmers markets, typically they come in a cardboard carton that you can either compost in your backyard, reuse it to start seeds in, or you can return it back to the farmer and typically they'll reuse it. In Ohio, you can reuse any egg container you would like, as long as it meets your local health department guidelines. You can also find things like honey and maple syrup that come in glass jars, and some markets even offer milk, and they typically come in a glass jar as well.
As a farmer's market in Adams County, do you have some kind of educational program or ways in which the other individuals that sell at the market can better understand the plastic?
No, not at our market. We just let the individual vendor make that decision. But I know at the Athens County Farmers Market, they partner with a organization called Rural Action, and Rural Action is a initiative that is helping them be a zero waste market. So trying to encourage all the vendors to cut back on their plastic use and those types of things.
Wouldn't it be sort of natural that we would start really cutting back on our own use in our
Absolutely.
household?
Absolutely. So just making small changes at one aspect of your life can really kind of have a ripple effect. And we can see a lot of change in how much plastic we use and what kind of products we're bringing into our own homes.
Anna, I'm really amazed, for instance, when I go to a fast food restaurant, how much packaging there is. Sometimes you get a sandwich in a cardboard box. You get at least 2 or 3 plastic or cardboard items. it's just amazing how much packaging there is for a $4 or $5 meal.
Yep, absolutely. And a lot of those things, unfortunately, are lined with plastic. So like a wrapper on a burger typically is a plastic coated paper wrapper. So that can't be composted. It can't be recycled. Some small things we can do at restaurants is like avoiding straws, for example, bringing your own straw with you for certain disability or medical reasons, but most of us don't need a straw. So just simply saying no thank you to straws will really reduce a lot of waste.
And the plastic lids, when you do get a drink, you also get a plastic lid. And what do we do with those plastic lids? But like the straws, we throw them away too.
Yep. So the plastic cups and lids are typically plastic number 5, which is a derivative of styrofoam that cannot be recycled. So those things typically get thrown away. We can bring our own drink with us or bring our own like coffee mug or water bottle and refill it. But other than that, there's really nothing we can do to avoid that type of plastic. Plastic is inevitable. We cannot help it. No matter how much we do, there will be plastic, and that's okay. We do need plastic in our society. It's done great things for the transportation industry, for the medical field, but a lot of it is unnecessary when it comes into our homes. So no matter what small action you take now, it will have an effect in the future, and it will be a major contributor to reducing our plastic waste. As long as you're just doing what is sustainable for you and your household, that's the most important thing.
Most individuals, when they decide to throw away their plastics, they really don't look at the numbers 1 or 2. Plastic is plastic as far as they're concerned, so they probably throw that away too. Is that good for the recycling of plastic?
No, so those types of plastics, especially when it comes to film type plastics like plastic bags and cling wrap, those types of things clog the machines and they slow them down or cause a lot of mechanical problems. So it's better to, for one, not put your recycling in plastic bags and toss it into the recycling bin. It's better to just loosely throw it all in there and it will be sorted out at the facility. But it is important that we do clean our plastic and aluminum and glass containers before we recycle them. Anything that has food residue on it cannot be recycled. And it's also important that we look at what recycling is available in our county. So you brought up Scioto County, Patrick, and I just learned the other day, Scioto County cannot recycle glass. They only recycle aluminum cans, plastic 1 and 2, and paper. So a lot of people may be throwing their glass in there thinking it will get recycled. And this is called wish cycling. So when we just throw something in the recycling bin, hoping it will be recycled, most of the time it just ends up in landfill.
And you're saying that if the container is not clean, that they throw that away.
Yep. So it doesn't have to be sparkling like your dishes, just a simple rinse to make sure there's no large food particles in there. And then you can toss it right in your recycling bin. Yeah. So in Adams County, we do recycle glass here, but I did learn that Scioto, Lawrence, and Highland County, I believe, you cannot recycle glass. And that's just simply, they just don't have the means to do it. And one of the common things is, do we have to remove the labels from our cans and glass and plastic before we recycle them? That's wonderful if you do, but you certainly don't have to. So like for a can of chicken broth, for example, if you just simply take the paper label off, you can recycle the paper and then recycle the aluminum can as well.
When we recycle the items and the companies pick them up, do they go to facilities in Ohio or do they ship the recycling items away from Ohio?
So that would probably depend county by county. I know here in Southern Ohio, typically it gets recycled right here unless it's something, I imagine most plastics probably are not recycled here. This is just my own thoughts. But I know in like Adams and Brown County, we have a facility called the Glass Refactory, and they actually melt the glass down and they make sun catchers out of it.
Oh,
certain things like that are done locally, but sometimes it is shipped off.
And you had mentioned that with plastic, it's far cheaper to make new plastics than it is to recycle.
Yes, so therefore doesn't create a demand for recycled plastic, and plastic that has been recycled will lose quality over time. So you can't make a new milk jug from an old milk jug. It gets downgraded into something else, and then it just keeps getting downgraded until it can't be used anymore.
When we throw away plastic, you say it becomes microplastic after a while.
Yeah, so if you have ever had a plastic bag that you pulled out of the ground and it just kind of shreds apart, that is just it breaking down into smaller plastics. So those can get picked up when it rains and washed down the drain. Birds can pick it up thinking it's food. It's kind of a ripple effect, and it's one of the biggest plastic polluters in our world currently is microplastics.
Well, I find this very interesting in the fact that since there is so much packaging that we have on our daily lives, and when we look at our trash containers, whether we're at the office or whether we're at home, there seems to be a lot of waste. And so what are a couple suggestions you might have for all of us to be aware of when it comes to use of plastic or the use of containers?
So the first thing we should all do is do a trash audit. So this just means keeping track of what trash you're throwing away for a whole week. And then at the end of the week, seeing, okay, most of my trash is coming from plastic, or most of it's coming from a fast food restaurant, and then thinking of ways we can reduce that waste. And it might just be as simple as making a small swap, like bringing my own water bottle to the gym instead of buying a plastic water bottle, bringing my own reusable produce bag to the grocery store rather than taking the plastic bag that they provide.
We're talking with Anna Adams. Anna Adams is a program assistant with the Ohio State University South Centers. She works in tandem with Christy Welsh. Christy is a direct marketing specialist with the Ohio State University. Anna, it's a pleasure talking with you. I really appreciate the information that you have given to all of us. And you know, it's good, I think, to remind everyone how important it is to recycle, or even more important, not to use so much packaging.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Patrick.